Hello and welcome to the latest Agenda podcast on the Blood Red channel with myself, Matt Addison, alongside Sean Bradbury. The January transfer window opens tomorrow, but what will Liverpool do, if anything, over the next few weeks? And which areas of the pitch do they need to strengthen? Those are the questions that have been asked recently, not least off the back now of two frustrating draws for Liverpool. But with the transfer window now just hours away from opening, how likely is it that Liverpool will make a signing, and who might that be? The obvious place, I suppose, to start with, Sean, is at centre-back. Liverpool, of course, without Joel Matip, now already without Virgil van Dijk and Joe Gomez. Surely that is the most pressing area of the pitch that Liverpool should be looking at.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I think it's the most pressing and perhaps really the only area of the pitch. But I think you're right. The chorus of fans is pretty much in unison, really. I think everyone would say if Liverpool can go out and get a centre-back, they need to do that. I think, when you look back at previous transfer windows, especially quite often in January, there have been these calls from supporters and, observers, pundits that Liverpool, often need to go out and do something in the transfer market. And I think usually Klopp and Edwards, when they are more reserved and they choose not to do something, they tend to almost have the last laugh, really, and be proved right if they're a bit more measured and a bit more cautious and, if they choose to wait for a top target or wait till the summer. But in this instance, I think it's a no-brainer, really. I think Liverpool do have to go out and get a centre-back if they can. But even having said that, the actual parameters of the situation make it so difficult. But I think this probably boils down to one of the trickiest decisions and tasks that Klopp and Edwards have had, really, since Klopp's been at the club. Because I think it's such a big opportunity now, isn't it, for where Liverpool are at the moment, top of the Premier League and cracking on in the Champions League through to the knockout stages, that it's such a big opportunity to compete on those two fronts. You've also got the FA Cup to throw in there. I think if they continued with the defensive options they've got at the moment, I do think they could get found out at the business end of the season. So, yeah, a centre-back's a no-brainer, but there's just a few factors, I think, that make the decision so difficult. I think the Newcastle game showed that it's got to be, if they go out and get a centre-back, it's got to be the right player for the system. Because, no disrespect to the guys who've been filling in, and Nat Phillips came in again and did a reasonable job, kept a clean sheet. But I think the way that Liverpool play and the nature of the central defenders that you need players who have, aerial ability, passing ability, the ability to change the pitch, to bring the ball out of defence. I think you need recovery pace. You need the ability to, maintain that high line, which Liverpool have had to compromise on a little bit, I think, when they brought different options in. My view on it is that all of this boils down to you can't really look to bring in a kind of Steven Corker type. I think if you were going to sign someone, it has to be someone who fits the mould of the system and is therefore a pretty competent and established and elite centre-back, really. It doesn't feel like one where a sticking plaster type signing who can come in, on loan or just as a temporary option, like an older head, really can do the job. I think if there was a player out there like that, it would be fantastic, but it's hard to really see one. And if you do compromise a little bit and get someone who's a bit more of a work in progress, that's fine. Those type of signings can work. And we've seen players like Robertson, Fabinho, hopefully Minamino take a while to adapt and then suddenly hit their stride in a Liverpool team. But I think we're talking about someone who has to come in and do a job straight away, really, if you're signing him, given that quite quickly Liverpool are going to find themselves in, big Champions League battles and just in the league, the way the league's shaping up. Every single game is huge now, isn't it? Liverpool is still top of the table, but the lead is pretty slender. Like United, if they win their game in hand, can go level on points with the Reds at the top. So yeah, I think someone has to come in and be able to do a job straight away. And I think that there's wider factors as well on the centre back issue. There's the whole issue of when will the options that Liverpool have at their disposal already be available again. I mean, Virgil van Dijk, it's so hard to say, isn't it? Klopp stressed several times that this is a long-term injury, and when we see images of him training in Dubai or wherever he's been, we shouldn't get too excited, and that he's working through the schedule, and that will take a long time. But we've already seen him powering away on the bike. I think we've already seen him doing a little bit of ball work, even though it looks very light and very initial in his recovery. But if there's anyone I think who's going to be an absolute machine and get back to fitness ahead of schedule, it's someone like Van Dijk. There was an interview with Trent Alexander-Arnold we've carried today, I think, where he was talking to Joe and he's talking about the lads in the Liverpool squad and what they're like in the gym. And he says, Salah's an absolute animal. He's like, you wouldn't expect it, but, brilliant physique, and he's the main man in the gym. But he says Van Dijk's, obviously you don't really need to do much more than look at him to tell, but, he's obviously very dedicated on his conditioning and his strength and all that type of thing. So perhaps he will be back sooner than expected. And, that's another factor. If Liverpool did sign someone, even someone who's got instant first team potential, what happens then when Van Dijk comes back and you've got your other options? And if Matip's fit again, it comes back to that whole conundrum that Klopp doesn't like, of having too many players in the squad and not enough minutes to give them. And then I think that the final factor, and I'd say the one that really will see if Klopp and Edwards can earn their corner over the next few weeks, is who's available and at what price. Because in fairness, I think we have seen names linked to Liverpool over the past couple of months from a centre-back perspective, where you think, well, there could be something in this. And if not for January, perhaps for next summer. It does feel like that's when Liverpool would have been looking to make a move had the injury situations not unfolded as they have over the past few weeks. Because, you think about next summer, I think Matip and Van Dijk both turn 30 over the summer. I think one in July, one in August. So you would like to be having another first team option, I would say, around that time. We've seen names like Ben White linked to the Reds. More tentatively, people like Upamecano and names like that. But I think in both those instances, and in most instances, really, when you look at good, top quality centre backs, Brighton are down in 17th at the moment, I think. There's no way Ben White's leaving in January, surely, because even if Liverpool came in with a very attractive offer for someone who they have scouted and are keeping tabs on by all accounts, I don't really see how that would be in Brighton's interest to let him go at the moment. Okay, you might get a decent payout. It's a difficult financial climate, as we're all well aware. But if that scuppers your actual season and puts you in jeopardy of relegation, it's not worth it. Upamecano, again, I mean, the links have been much more speculative. I think he's just an elite player, isn't he, who looks ready to take a step up and join perhaps one of the top clubs in Europe somewhere, or even bigger than Leipzig. But again, it's a little bit different for them compared to Brighton, but they're battling at the top of the Bundesliga. They've obviously got two very big clashes coming up in the Champions League against the Reds. So why would you be letting someone like him go now? So, yeah, I think it's a combination of factors where every single Liverpool fan, and ultimately I think Klopp and the club would like to see someone come in who can shore things up, fit in straight away, and allow Liverpool to carry on this challenge on both big fronts in Europe and domestically. But it's just a very, very difficult job to see who exactly that is. But, we've said this time and time again, haven't we, that Edwards and Klopp and the recruitment structure at Liverpool is just way, way ahead of the curve. And look back to the summer, Diego Jota came from nowhere. He's been absolutely brilliant in terms of the start to his Liverpool career. So maybe they will spring a surprise. We'll have to see. But my instinct is that I think they'd love to do business, but I wonder whether they'll settle with what they've got. And maybe the deciding factor will almost be, if you use someone like Henderson in defence, or, Williams, that the lads who've been doing it recently, at least they know the system. They know how it works and how things operate. And, with some midfielders, the likes of Thiago coming back, maybe you've got a little bit more leeway to drop Henderson back in, keep using Fabinho as he's been in defence and done so well. But yeah, we'll see what unfolds. I think every Liverpool fan would love to be surprised by Klopp and Edwards, and you never know, do you? It might well happen.
Yeah, I mean, assuming Virgil van Dijk is back before the end of the season, and like you say, he's seemingly making some decent progress, Liverpool would need to sign or would need an extra place in their squad if it was to be a non-English signing that they made. Divock Origi is one that, of course, has been linked with a move away. Would you say, in your opinion, it's worth letting him leave if that would facilitate a move? Is that the sort of right piece of the jigsaw puzzle to move on? Yeah,
absolutely. I think, he's been a cult hero, hasn't he? Origi, been involved in some huge moments for the Reds. But I think you're right. If it facilitated that, that's one aspect of it. But I think it's got to the point as well where when he's coming on for his cameos, it's not really working. I know Jota, we've mentioned already, is injured at the moment, but it's not too long-term an injury by the sounds of it, and hopefully he'll be back quite soon, at some point early on in the new year, end of Jan, early Feb, I think was the initial projection. Shaqiri's just come back, hasn't he? He got, quite literally just minutes against Newcastle, but he's an option again, and speaking afterwards in the post-match press conference, Klopp was delighted to have him back. He said, the boys are back, Shaqiri and Thiago, Milner and others. So yeah, I think Origi's place in the pecking order has fallen down a little bit, but I do think potentially though there's a reasonable deal to be had there for him, and I think he's the type of player who can be re-energized and will find his feet and form again at a different club, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, one thing he hasn't had at Liverpool is a team and an attack built around him. I mean, he's clearly good enough to play at a pretty high level, but I think what's been found out is he's not sufficient quality cover to come in and do a job to replace Liverpool's front three to the standard that Jota has. I mean, like we said, Origi's had his moments and some really big ones in really big games, but I don't think Jota's had a game where he hasn't looked a threat. Like Virgil hasn't had a game where he hasn't scored. So, Liverpool have finally gone from having a front three with questionable cover, shall we say, possibly inadequate and not on the level of Salah, Mane and Firmino. Whereas now they've got a genuine contender to take one of their places. So, that's transformed Liverpool. And obviously it's been to Liverpool's detriment that Jota's been out at the moment. But yeah, I think if Origi is to depart in January, you do so with best wishes, but it might be the best move for player and club at this stage.
If Liverpool are to make a signing this window, I mean, you'd imagine it would happen fairly quickly, wouldn't you? Because I think we'd find out fairly soon. There's no point in them waiting around for a few weeks. So I suppose the answer to this question is probably going to come in the next few days if there is going to be one. Yeah,
I think that's a very fair point, actually, because when you think about Van Dijk back those few seasons ago, and even Minamino a year ago, they were wrapped up right at the start of the window. You're spot on there. So I think that, and given what we've said so far about the centre-back situation, which is the obvious sign, isn't it, if Liverpool do make one, I think, and wanting someone to come in and hit the ground straight away and learn the ropes, learn all about what Liverpool do and the manner in which they defend, yeah, I think that makes it even more essential that they came in straight away. So yeah, I think the longer it went on in January, the less of an impact potentially they'd have this season. So yeah, if they are going to do it, you'd like to think it'd be the next week or so.
And just finally, is there any other position that you'd like to see Liverpool strengthen, or is it purely a case of a centre-back or nothing for this January?
Yeah, personally, I would say it's just that one priority position. I think everywhere else you look, the keeper situation, I think, is fine. Kelleher's run he had filling in for Alisson was excellent. I think he is now the default number 2, and you've also got Adrian as well, haven't you? So there are 3 of them there if needs be, and if there are more injuries in midfield, I suppose the lingering question there is Wijnaldum and his contract, but I certainly don't think he'd be going anywhere in January. Obviously, we now know that he could be talking to other clubs to potentially fashion a move away next summer and agree a pre-contract deal. That can now happen in January. But, there's absolutely been no suggestion that anyone would be looking to come in and pay a fee to take him now. So I don't think Liverpool are deficient in midfield. I think obviously they have been with the likes of Thiago being out, Oxlade-Chamberlain being on the sidelines, Milner and others having injury issues. But like we saw against Newcastle last night, they're back. Hopefully Thiago can come in and really establish himself now, build on these 3 cameo performances, which have been excellent. So I don't think there's issues there. And then up front, as we've said, I think Liverpool have got themselves in a position where they could potentially let go of Origi and still be okay once Diogo Jota's come back. So, no, I don't think there's much else needed. But if they can get that centre-back done, I think it really could be the difference between, one trophy, potentially even becoming 2. I think it is that big a move if Liverpool can get it right and find the right man.
Yeah, absolutely. Liverpool, of course, still top of the Premier League table, but another body in central defence certainly wouldn't go amiss. We will shortly find out whether or not Michael Edwards, Jurgen Klopp and co agree. But for now, that is all we've got time for on the latest Agenda podcast from myself, Matt Addison and Sean Bradbury. Thank you for watching or listening. And until next time, it's goodbye for now.